Okay, well, I'm ready to go.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, just a few questions for you. Thanks for joining us with the Intercounty Leader. So there's been talk of shifting the oversight of elections from the bipartisan Wisconsin Election Commission to the Secretary of State's office. What are your thoughts on this proposal?
Well, I think it is a ridiculously dangerous idea. We don't want to put elected partisan politicians, Democrat or Republican, in charge of the elections. Wisconsin was a leader more than 50 years ago. We set up an election board of, I believe, 5 retired judges, and that worked very well for many years. We were a leader, and we kept politics out of the election process. Then Governor Walker got angry at the election board because they made some rulings he didn't agree with during the recall. I think the election board was correct, by the way. So they then eliminated the election board and set up this election commission, which is bipartisan, but it's still somewhat political. But it's better than having an elected person in charge. The commission is better than that. So I'm strongly opposed to eliminating the election commission's control and giving it to my opponent who wants to have some control about the elections. I could talk a lot about what happens when that happens. What happened in Florida during the Al Gore election, as you may remember, or in Ohio, there was a U.S. Senate race in Ohio where the Secretary of State intervened. And what happened 2 years ago when Trump and his people, quite a few of his people, and many of them are in trouble right now, were trying to influence the elections, trying to convince secretaries of state and election commissioners to make changes, to remove the proper votes, which Mr. Biden won, and replace them with votes that would allow Trump to win. We saw what could happen. Even in Wisconsin, Trump flew 2 of the election commissioners, I believe, to the White House and twisted their arm. Fortunately, many Republicans didn't go along with Trump, which is good. But we don't want to put an elected person in charge of the elections, in my opinion.
Okay. What specifically then do you feel should the office of Secretary of State play in terms of the elections? What do you see that as?
I'm sorry, but what role should the Secretary of State play?
Or what role should your office play in terms of the election then? What should you be able to do?
Well, in my opinion, it should be the same as it is now, which is no role. The Secretary of State has no role in the elections. It's done by the Election Commission and the county clerks. In 72 counties, the county clerks have done a very good job. I don't ever remember someone criticizing one of them for playing politics.
Okay. Your duties of the office have been reduced in Wisconsin here over the years. Do you feel the changes that were made were necessary, and what do you see as the most important role that the Secretary of State plays today?
Well, those changes were unfortunate, and they happened because of politics. Governor Thompson wanted to control everything he could, so he got the legislature, and some of the Republicans disagreed, by the way, when I talked with them way back then, but he pushed it through. So he could remove about, when I was first elected, there were about 48 people working in the office. And he removed about 80% of that and transferred the duties under the governor's control. And that was a mistake because all across the country, Secretary of State have certain responsibilities. Corporations, trademarks, notary public, so forth. And Wisconsin now is different. My office still gets emails and phone calls, people wanting to set up a corporation. And we have to say, no, Wisconsin doesn't have it this way. You've got to call the governor's agency. So, and then Governor Walker got angry, and he decided to remove the rest of the duties and the staff. So now I only have one full-time person to try to do what's left in the office now, which is mostly the issuing of apostilleos, which are an international authentication document that we could talk about if you like. Sure. We also file documents for the legislature and the governor's office when the governor issues extraditions or proclamations, those come to the office. The legislative records every 2 years, they come to the office. So that's what's left with one person. And we cannot get the job done. We need more people. And it's made it very difficult. It's been a very frustrating job for the last few years. Imagine if you have one person and they get sick or they go on vacation, which they have a right to do, look what happens. And it's made it even more complicated with the virus and people working at home. So it was a mistake to do that. Governor Evers, to his credit, has tried twice in his budget to restore the 2 people we need to run the office effectively. And the Republicans took those out and denied that. So the office is in a very difficult situation with the lack of staff and resources.
Okay. And then turning toward the general election here in November, what do you feel gives you an advantage over your opponent, Amy Loudenbach? Ideas or experience or both?
Well, because the main issue is whether the Secretary of State should control the elections. And she says yes, I say no. So it's pretty simple. As far as the actual politics of it or the electability, I think I've got a good chance to win. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
There's some funny noise. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Anyway, I think I've got a good chance to win. I hope everybody who reads this article will agree with me that we don't want to put politics in charge of elections, and they'll vote for me, and I can win the election. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you would like to share with the readers of the Intercounty Leader or those listening to the interview on our digital platform?
No, I think we pretty much covered the two issues that are important. One is keeping the politics out of the election process. Don't give the Secretary of State that responsibility. And second, the office should be restored to the way it was originally. So we're like the rest of the country, and we can process the corporations and trademarks and things like other secretaries of state do around the nation.